You never really know you're not over someone until you see them again. It could be months, years even. But the moment their face enters your line of sight, your lungs forget how to breathe. Your heart skips, stumbles, and, in the worst cases, starts hoping again. That's what happened to me. Right there in the middle of a Thursday afternoon, at a coffee shop I hadn't even meant to walk into. I was only there because the place I usually work from was swamped. Students, remote workers, couples arguing over almond milk. It was chaos. So I wandered down the street, turned a corner I hadn't turned before, and found Barrel and Bloom, a small, rustic cafe tucked between a vintage bookstore and a florist. I liked the vibe. Quiet, earthy, the kind of place where people actually whispered when they spoke. I ordered chai, found a seat by the window, and opened my laptop like I actually planned to get something done. And that's when he walked in. Ethan, same posture, same warm skin, same stupid hair that never did what it was told. But he had grown into himself more. His jawline was sharper now, his shoulders broader. He looked like someone who'd moved on, and I hated how much I noticed that. I ducked, literally ducked, behind my laptop like a cartoon character. I know it was pathetic, but the breakup had been messy, not dramatic, just quietly cruel. The kind of ending where nobody yells, nobody cheats. You just fall apart, like two people holding hands in a dream and waking up in separate beds. He'd been my first serious relationship, and the person who taught me what it felt like to be chosen. Until one day, he didn't choose me anymore. It had been a year. No texts, no happy birthdays, no accidental likes on Instagram. We were ghosts to each other. And yet, there he was, ordering black coffee like he used to, leaning against the same counter we once waited at together. I watched from behind the screen, heart racing. Should I say something? Should I leave? What if he saw me and didn't say anything at all? But before I could decide, he turned, and our eyes met. He paused mid-step, not shocked, not smiling, just frozen. Then, like a damn slow-motion movie, he walked toward me. I tried to look busy, adjusted my screen, tapped some keys. Milo. God. His voice. Still calm. Still made my name sound like a lullaby. I looked up. Hey, I said too quietly. He smiled. Wow. I didn't think I'd ever run into you again. I nodded. Yeah, same. There was a pause. A long, excruciating one. Mind if I sit? He asked. I hesitated, then nodded. He slid into the seat across from me, like he'd done it 100 times before. And the worst part? It felt familiar. Safe. Wrong. He looked good. Too good. He wore this deep blue sweater that made his eyes look darker. Still had that silver chain around his neck. The one I bought him for his birthday. I noticed he still wore it. Been a while, he said, cradling the paper cup. Yeah, a year, I think. I replied, pretending like I hadn't counted. How have you been? I'm good. You? He nodded. Getting there. We talked for a bit. Small talk. Mutual friends. New jobs. He'd moved apartments. Got a promotion. Was dating someone new. Though he didn't say it directly. Just enough hints. It shouldn't have hurt. But it did. Every laugh. Every sip. Felt like watching someone hold a version of your life you weren't invited to anymore. I was actually just passing through, he said after a while. Standing. Didn't know you came here. I don't, I said honestly. Just a random detour. Well, fate, then, he smiled softly. I gave him a weak grin. I should let you get back to work, he said, gesturing to my laptop. Yeah, probably. He paused again, like he wanted to say something else. Then just nodded. Take care, Milo. You too. And just like that, he walked away. Again. I didn't work after that. I couldn't. Instead, I just sat there, staring at the cup he'd left behind. A lipstick smudge on the lid. Not mine. Not his. Proof of a life I wasn't part of anymore. I walked home that evening with a strange ache in my chest, like something had reopened, a door I thought I'd locked and bricked over. That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories came rushing back. The road trip to Vermont. The time we slow danced in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The stupid fight about plant pots that ended with us kissing in the rain. And I wondered, was I really over him? Or had I just gotten better pretending I was? That question haunted me for days. Until one night, someone new entered my life. And one unexpected kiss, soft, honest, and unplanned, would unravel everything I thought I knew about love, healing, and moving on. If you've ever run into an ex and felt like your chest forgot how to breathe, drop a broken heart in the comments. We've all been there. The funny thing about heartbreak is that it's rarely loud. It doesn't scream. It doesn't come with thunder or a dramatic violin score. Sometimes it just lingers, quiet, like background noise, like a low hum in the walls that only you can hear. After seeing Ethan again, that hum became deafening. It had been 3 days since the coffee shop. 3 long, sleepless, overly analytical days. I tried distracting myself, worked extra hours, deep cleaned the apartment, watched entire seasons of shows I couldn't remember 10 minutes later. But nothing worked. Every time I let my guard down for even a second, his voice echoed in my head. Fate, then. That word stuck with me, like some cruel joke. Was it fate that we met again? Or was the universe testing me? Poking at wounds I had almost stopped picking. That Friday night, I ended up at Vesper, a sleek little lounge on the edge of downtown. Not my usual scene, too polished, too curated. But I needed to be anywhere but my apartment, anywhere but inside my own mind. The place was dimly lit, crowded but not overwhelming. Warm-toned bulbs hung like stars, and the hum of conversation felt just distant enough. I sat at the bar, ordered a whiskey sour, and tried to look less broken than I felt. That's when I met Julian. He was a bartender. Tall, sharp-featured, but soft in the eyes. Tattoo just visible beneath the sleeve of his black shirt. A small crescent moon on his wrist. He slid the drink toward me without a word, but his eyes lingered just a second longer than they needed to. Rough night? He asked casually. I offered a half smile. Is it that obvious? Only because I've been there. He didn't ask for details. Didn't pry. He just gave me space. And I hadn't realized how badly I needed that. I stayed longer than I planned to. Watched people come and go. Watched Julian move behind the bar. Fluid, confident, quiet. I ordered a second drink, then a third. Maybe slowed down, he said with a crooked smile, resting his elbow on the bar. Don't want you crying on my countertop. We already had 2 of those tonight. I laughed, actually laughed. First time in days. You always as charming. I asked, only on Fridays. Around midnight, a guy sat next to me and tried to flirt. He leaned in too close. Asked too many questions. Tried to guess my zodiac sign, like it was a pickup line. Julian noticed. You good, he mouthed across the counter. I gave a tight nod. But a minute later, Julian stepped in. Hey, man, he said to the guy beside me. You left your card at the other end. Might want to check. The guy frowned, confused. Got up. Never came back. I looked at Julian. He just shrugged. Figured you weren't in the mood for guesses about your moon sign. Thank you, I said quietly. No problem. I paid my tab around 12:45 a.m. Stood, pulled my jacket on. You coming back next Friday? Julian asked as he cleaned a glass. I hesitated. Should I? I asked. He smirked. Up to you. There was something in his tone. Not pushy, not flirtatious. Just open, like he was leaving the door slightly ajar, just in case. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time, it wasn't because of Ethan. This time, it was because I kept replaying one small thing. A bartender saw me drowning and didn't try to save me. He just sat on the shoreline waiting. And that felt safer than any rescue ever could. The next Friday, I went back. Of course I did. And so began something I hadn't expected. A slow, silent, meaningful pull toward someone new. Not in a romantic way. Not yet. But in the way that reminds you, you're still worth looking at. You're still here. and someone out there sees you. Some stories don't start with fireworks. They start with small things: a text, a glance, a drink handed to you by someone who doesn't expect anything in return. That's how it was with Julian. It wasn't about falling fast. It was about feeling safe enough to lean forward, even just an inch. And that inch changed everything. I went back to Vesper the following Friday, and the one after that, then again the week after. Julian and I never made plans. We just found each other. I'd walk in, and he'd already be sliding my drink down the bar. We talked about everything and nothing: the weather, old songs, why people pretend to like Negronis. But we never talked about love. Not really. Not until the night he asked me out. It was raining. Soft, summer rain that painted the windows and turned the sidewalks into mirrors. I was the only one sitting at the bar. It was late, maybe midnight. The lounge had mostly cleared out, but Julian was still there, polishing glasses like it meant something. "Do you always stay late?" I asked. "Only when I'm avoiding my roommate's cat," he smirked. I grinned. "Rough living situation?" "He's in love with me. The cat, not the roommate." We both laughed. Then, out of nowhere, he looked up and asked, dead serious, "Want to grab breakfast tomorrow?" Like, actual breakfast, not hangover fast food. I blinked, not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure if I should. The words tangled in my throat. He raised his hands. Totally okay if that's weird. Just felt like asking. I studied his face. He wasn't bluffing. There was no agenda behind his eyes. Just a gentle kind of patience. Like he already knew I wasn't ready. And he was still asking anyway. I hesitated, then said, "Okay." We agreed to meet at a diner the next morning. A cozy corner spot called Nina's, known for its pancakes and 70s wallpaper. I got there early, ordered coffee, checked my phone way too often, rehearsed how I'd greet him. And when the door finally opened, it wasn't Julian who walked in. It was Ethan. Again, what were the odds? He looked as stunned to see me as I felt seeing him. He wasn't alone either. There was someone behind him, a guy in a brown corduroy jacket, smiling like this was their spot. I froze. Ethan nodded politely, that tight, familiar smile, then walked past my booth, sat just 2 tables away, close enough to hear my voice, close enough that I could hear his. The air changed. The coffee cooled in my hands, and the confidence I'd woken up with, gone. I checked my phone. Still no text from Julian. Maybe he got caught up. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe the universe really hated me. I was about to leave, stand, pay, and disappear quietly, when the door opened again. Julian walked in, drenched, out of breath, holding a single white daisy in his hand. "Sorry," he said as he slid into the booth. Uber broke down 3 blocks away. I ran. I laughed, half in relief, half in disbelief. "You brought a flower?" He shrugged, a little embarrassed. I figured it was charming or cringe. No in-between. "It's kind of perfect." He smiled. "Good." We ordered pancakes and coffee. He didn't notice Ethan. Didn't hear the awkward silence 2 tables down. But I couldn't stop noticing. Couldn't stop glancing. Julian must have seen the tension in my shoulders, because after our plates were cleared, he leaned in and said softly, "You okay?" I nodded too fast. "Yeah, just tired." "You sure?" "Yeah." He didn't press, didn't pry. But before we parted ways outside, he turned to me on the sidewalk and said, "You don't owe me an explanation, but if something or someone is still taking up space in your chest, just know I'm not trying to replace them. I just want to be someone who walks beside you, not over your past." That hit me like a wave, because he wasn't trying to fix me. He wasn't rushing me forward. He was just there, patient, present, and real. We didn't kiss. Not that day. It wasn't a date. Not really. It was an almost. But sometimes almost are the most important things, because they remind you healing doesn't come in a rush. Sometimes it walks slowly beside someone kind, who brings you a flower runs through the rain, and never asks for more than you're ready to give. Some people try to fix your broken pieces. They rush in with glue, tape, promises. But the ones who really help you heal, they just sit beside the cracks and wait until you're ready to lift the pieces yourself. That's what Julian did. He didn't fill the silence with pressure. He didn't try to be a replacement. He just stayed, and in doing that, he slowly became the calm I didn't know I was searching for. After the almost date at Nina's, things shifted. We didn't talk about it. There were no labels, no grand conversations. But he started texting me during the week. Simple things. Rain's heavy today. Hope you stay dry. Heard a song that reminded me of pancakes and awkward glances. You still drinking whiskey sours, or did I ruin that for you? And I'd reply, always, because no matter how heavy my day felt, his messages were light, effortless, and something about them always made me smile. Then came Wednesday night. I remember it so vividly because it was the first time I laughed so hard I cried, and the first time I realized my heart wasn't just beating, it was waking up. Julian invited me to a backyard movie night. Nothing big, just him, his roommate, and a cheap projector aimed at a white sheet. He texted, "There will be popcorn and sarcastic commentary. Bring yourself." I hesitated. Part of me still felt like I didn't belong in his world, like I was standing on the edge of something too good, too safe. But I went, and I'm glad I did. His backyard was small, strung with fairy lights. Blankets were scattered across the grass. The movie? Clueless. Perfectly terrible in all the best ways. Julian greeted me with 2 beers and a smirk. "Glad you didn't ghost," he said, handing me one. Tempting. I replied, "But I heard there'd be popcorn." He grinned. That damn grin. Warm. Unbothered. Like he wasn't trying to win me over. Like just having me there was enough. We sat side by side, not touching. But every time I laughed, he looked at me like the sound mattered more than the movie. Like he was trying to memorize it. There was a scene where Cher says, "I felt impotent and out of control, which I really hate." And Julian whispered, relatable. I choked on my drink. He looked at me, alarmed. "You good?" I was not ready for that. We both lost it. His roommate gave us a mock death stare, but we were too far gone. Bent over, laughing, tears in my eyes. For a second, just a second, I forgot Ethan existed. I forgot I had been heartbroken. All I knew was that Julian's smile was a place I wanted to live in for a while. After the movie ended and his roommate wandered inside, we stayed outside, stars above, lights twinkling, beer bottles resting between our legs. We talked, really talked, about music, regrets, childhood dreams we hadn't chased. He told me he almost went to culinary school. "I want to make food that felt like a hug," he said. I asked what stopped him. My mom got sick. Bills stacked up. Dreams went on the shelf. I just listened, because for once, he let me. And then, without planning it, we both leaned back on the grass, shoulders just barely brushing. And in that quiet, he said something that knocked the wind out of me. "You don't look sad tonight." I blinked. "What?" "You don't have that heaviness in your eyes. It's nice to see." I didn't know what to say, because no one had ever said that to me. Not noticed, not named it. I turned my head. He was already looking at me. That same soft gaze. The one that didn't ask me for anything except the truth. I forgot how to laugh after him. I said, there it was, the thing I'd been avoiding, the sentence that tasted like glass. But I said it, and Julian didn't flinch. He just nodded, then smiled so gently it hurt. "You just remembered again." We didn't kiss. Not yet, but when he walked me to my car that night, he opened the door for me, tucked my hoodie string back into place, and said, "Thanks for coming." For real, it wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. But something about the way he looked at me, like I was not broken, like I was worth the invitation, it left a mark, the kind that doesn't fade. That night, I couldn't stop smiling. Not because I had fallen in love, but because someone had finally reminded me it's okay to feel good again. It's okay to laugh, to lean in, to let the past loosen its grip. And maybe, just maybe, he was the person who would help me find my way out of it. Some nights don't look like turning points until you look back. They feel like any other evening, quiet, soft around the edges. But somewhere in the ordinary, something shifts, and you realize later that was the moment I let go. This was mine. It was late September. One of those perfect autumn nights, cool but not cold. The kind where the city feels slower. Like even time is taking a breath before winter hits. Julian texted around 8. Want to come over? Got candles, records, and a kitchen that needs judgment. I replied, what kind of judgment? The honest kind. I tried making something seasonal. I may have disrespected pumpkins. I smiled, already grabbing my jacket. His apartment was warm, not just because of the heat, but because everything in it felt lived in, books stacked sideways, plants thriving in corners, and a turntable spinning something slow and jazzy. Hey, he said when he opened the door. No big smile, just soft eyes. I stepped inside and took a breath. There was again that calm, like my chest could finally relax here. The seasonal dish was a chaotic but oddly delicious pasta, with chunks of roasted squash, sage, and way too much cheese. I teased him. He fake pouted. We ate cross-legged on the couch with 2 glasses of red wine and 0 expectations. We didn't talk about anything deep at first. Just life, work, the fact that his landlord looked like a retired magician. But then, as the night went on and the second glass disappeared, so did the small talk. He turned to me, serious this time. Do you still love him? The room went quiet. No music, just the sound of traffic 3 floors down, and my own heartbeat in my ears. I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know. I didn't want to love Ethan anymore. But did that mean I didn't? I looked at Julian. He wasn't pressuring me. He was just asking, softly, gently, like someone holding a door open, not pushing me through it. I sighed. I think I loved the version of him that existed in my head, not who he really was at the end. Julian nodded. That's still a real kind of love. Is it? He looked down. I think so. Sometimes the hardest part is realizing someone didn't love you back in the way you needed. I swallowed hard. Have you ever had that? He nodded. Yeah, a few times. I stared at my glass. It makes you feel stupid. Julian leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. It doesn't make you stupid. It makes you brave. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, full of unspoken things, and acceptance. Then he reached for my hand. Not fast, not dramatic. Just placed his hand near mine on the couch cushion and waited. I moved mine toward his. Let our fingers graze. Then lock. It was the first time we'd touched like that, and it felt like every noise in the world softened. I looked at him, really looked. The faint scar above his eyebrow, the way his lashes curled at the ends, the fact that he always smelled like cedar and cinnamon. And I said it before I could second guess. I want to stop thinking about Ethan. Julian looked back at me. You will. No, I mean tonight. I want to let it go. I'm tired of carrying this thing like it still belongs to me. He nodded. Okay. Then, slowly, he leaned in, and I met him halfway. The kiss wasn't perfect. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't movie scene music swelling in the background. But it was real, and warm, and steady, like he knew exactly how to hold me, without rushing, like he'd waited for me to be ready. And in that moment, as our lips met and my heart stopped guarding itself, I didn't think about Ethan. Not once. Not his laugh. Not his face. Not his stupid blue sweater. Just Julian. His lips. His hands. His presence. We didn't do anything more. No clothes came off. No heavy breathing. We just stayed close. Foreheads together. Hands still intertwined. And for the first time in over a year, I felt like. Later, when I was leaving, Julian walked me to the door. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said softly. I think I'm finally okay. He smiled. Good. That's all I wanted. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I just lay in bed, hands on my chest, and whispered to myself, that kiss didn't change who I am, but it reminded me who I've always been. Someone worth loving. Again, love doesn't always return as fireworks or butterflies. Sometimes it returns as silence, as the quiet hum of being next to someone and not needing to say a thing. That's what it felt like with Julian after that kiss. Not overwhelming, not confusing, just still, like I was standing in the center of my own life again. Finally, it had been 3 weeks since that night in his apartment, since the kiss, since I whispered to myself that I was okay. And somehow, he'd only gotten gentler. He never rushed me, never brought up the kiss like it meant I owed him something. Instead, he sent me a new song each morning, one with a piano solo, or lyrics that felt like pages torn from my own chest. Sometimes I'd wake up to messages like, this one feels like early autumn and warm hands. Thought of you. Other times it was just, hope today is gentle. I hadn't known how much I needed gentleness. Not until it was handed to me, freely, without agenda. And for once, I didn't flinch when someone stayed. One Friday evening, we planned something different. No bars, no movies, no loud spaces. Just his couch, pizza, and a puzzle we'd never finish. Call me boring, he'd said over text. But I've been dreaming about a lazy night with you in 1,000 little cardboard pieces of chaos. It made me laugh. So I went. He greeted me at the door in sweats, barefoot, holding a plate of cookies he'd clearly tried to make himself. Don't judge me, he said before I even stepped in. They were supposed to be chocolate chip. Somehow they're, I don't know, emotional support cookies. Perfect, I said. That's exactly what I need. We spread out on the living room rug, puzzle pieces scattered between us. The pizza box open, his cat sitting on the edge pretending not to be nosy. Music played low, something acoustic, and we talked about everything but the puzzle. I told him about my dad, how he never really knew what to do with a gay son, how we hadn't talked properly in over a year. He told me about his mom's Alzheimer's, how sometimes she still remembers his name, and sometimes she doesn't. There were no interruptions, no jokes to lighten the mood, just presence. And by the end of that hour, I felt closer to Julian than I'd ever felt with someone I wasn't trying to impress. At one point, we sat in silence for a long while, both of us pretending to look for the right puzzle piece. And then he reached out, just resting his hand on my knee. No pressure, no pull, just an anchor. I looked up. Do you always do that? I asked, what? Know when I need someone to touch me without making it feel heavy? He smiled, soft and small. No, just with you. My chest ached in that beautiful, fragile way. Can I ask you something? I said, anything. Why haven't you tried to? I paused. Push this forward? You know to more? He leaned back slightly, thinking, because I don't want more from you. I want with you, and those two things aren't the same. That floored me, because I'd always known people who wanted to date me to feel wanted, to fill a void, to make the idea of a relationship feel real again. But Julian wanted something different, something slower, deeper, a relationship with me, not just one that checked the boxes. Later that night, we ended up curled together on the couch, his arm draped loosely around me, the kind of closeness that didn't demand anything, just offered peace. The storm in my chest, the one Ethan had left behind, had been quiet for days, and now it was gone. I tilted my head slightly, resting it on Julian's shoulder. I didn't know I could feel this safe again. I whispered. He looked at me, only for a second, then pressed a kiss to the top of my head. You don't have to earn safety, he said. You just deserve it. We didn't talk after that. We just stayed there, wrapped in the moment, wrapped in each other. And as the rain began tapping softly on the windows outside, I realized I hadn't thought about Ethan in over a week. Not his smile, not his absence, not even his ghost, because someone else was here now. And this, whatever it was, felt like home. There's a moment in healing that no one talks about. It's not loud, not cinematic. You just wake up one day and realize you haven't thought about them. And when you do, there's nothing left to feel. No pain, no ache, no spark of what if, just stillness. I didn't believe that was possible until the day I saw Ethan again. It was a Sunday, mid-October. The city was wrapped in gold and rust, the trees shedding everything they carried all year. Julian and I had spent the morning at the farmer's market. He'd insisted on finding the perfect apple cider, like it was a mission from God. I laughed every time he squinted at labels like he was decoding them for secrets. We were holding hands. Something we hadn't done in public before. It wasn't a performance. It just felt natural, like our fingers belonged together now. We stopped at a small coffee shop on the corner of Pine and 12th, one of those cozy ones with dried oranges hanging in the windows, and lattes that smell like cinnamon and dreams. I went alone to grab our drinks while Julian waited outside, texting his roommate about dinner plans. And when I turned from the counter, Ethan was there. He was standing in line, alone, head down, scrolling his phone. For a second, just a second, my breath caught. But not because I missed him, not because I wanted to run. It was something else. Recognition. Like seeing a photograph of your old self. When you don't hate, but no longer relate to. He looked up, saw me. Our eyes met. And this time, I didn't flinch. "Hey," he said, stepping forward. "Hey," I replied calmly. He glanced toward the door, where Julian stood waiting. Then back at me. "You look good." "Thanks." Another pause. "You seem happy." I smiled, not out of pride, just truth. "I am." He nodded slowly. "That's good." I didn't ask how he was. Didn't ask about the guy he was with last time. Didn't ask about anything. Because I didn't need answers anymore. Closure had come quietly. Not from him, but from the way Julian had taught me to live again. And now, standing there, I finally understood. Ethan had been a chapter. But Julian was becoming a story. "I should go," I said softly, holding the coffees. Ethan nodded. "Of course." "Take care, Ethan." "You too, Milo." And that was it. No drama. No tension. No lingering looks. Just a full stop. I stepped outside. The sun hit my face. The air was crisp. Julian looked up from his phone, smiling as I walked toward him. "Got the good stuff?" he asked, taking the cider. "Only the best." He didn't ask why I looked a little off. Didn't dig. But I told him anyway. I just saw Ethan inside. He blinked. "Oh." He said I looked happy. Julian tilted his head, studying me. "Do you feel happy?" I looked at him, at the soft light in his eyes, at the way he always made space for me, never demands. "I do," I said. "And the weird part is, I didn't feel anything seeing him." Julian smiled. "That's not weird. That's peace." We walked in silence for a few blocks. The city felt slower again, the chaos distant. And then he said, almost as a whisper, "You deserve this." "What?" "This life, this lightness, all of it." We spent the rest of the afternoon in the park, feet tangled, backs resting against a tree, watching the leaves fall like quiet applause. And in that moment, I knew something had shifted for good, not because Ethan was gone, but because I'd stopped needing him to be a ghost in my story. I had chosen something better, something real, and for the first time, I believed I was worthy of it. Some kisses are just kisses, a brush of lips, a passing moment, a silent maybe. But some kisses, they stay, not because of how they felt, but because of what they meant. This one, the one Julian gave me on that quiet October night, wasn't our first, but it was the one that said, "I see you, all of you, and I'm not going anywhere." It had been a long week. Deadlines, late nights, missed texts. Julian had been swamped at the bar. I'd been caught up in meetings I didn't care about. We hadn't seen each other in days. But somehow we still felt close. Funny how that happens when someone fits into your life, like they were always meant to be there. That Saturday night, I showed up at his door with a bag of takeout, wearing one of his old hoodies. He opened the door in sweatpants and sleepy eyes, smelled faintly of coffee and vinyl records. "Hey," he said, like he'd been waiting all week to say just that. "Hi." We didn't rush dinner. We sat on the floor, watched reruns of old cooking shows, laughed when the souffle collapsed, made fun of the overly dramatic judges. We didn't talk about feelings. We didn't need to, because they were everywhere. In the way he looked at me when I wasn't watching. In the way I leaned into him like my body knew the shape of his comfort. Around midnight, he pulled a blanket over both of us. We lay back against the couch, and after a long silence, he whispered, "Do you know what I thought the first night I saw you?" I turned slightly, looked up at him. "What?" "That you looked like you were holding your breath, like someone who hadn't exhaled in months." I blinked. "And now," he continued, "you look like someone who's finally breathing again." I swallowed hard, didn't respond, because tears were already gathering in the corners of my eyes. He brushed his thumb gently across my cheek, waited. I finally said, "I didn't know someone could feel like home." He smiled barely, but deeply, and then he kissed me. It wasn't fast, or needy, or filled with heat. It was slow, and still, like time paused just long enough for both of us to know. This matters. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. His lips lingered against mine, not asking, not taking, just staying. And when we pulled away, he didn't speak. He just looked at me, like I was something beautiful. Not broken, not healing. Just me, whole, enough, loved. And that was when I realized I had moved on. Not because Ethan was out of my life, but because Julian was in it, fully, freely, without asking me to erase the past, just offer me a future. We fell asleep on the couch, tangled, warm, no big declarations, no fireworks, just the soft knowledge that something had begun, something honest, something I didn't have to chase or question. And as I drifted off with his arms around me, I thought about that first kiss, the one I believed helped me move on. But it wasn't that kiss. It was this one, this quiet, steady kiss, that told me I was no longer surviving love. I was finally living in it,